In this video, I'm going to talk about the process of buying a condominium here in Puerto Rico and real estate in general in Puerto Rico. I made a video a little while ago where I talked about, I showed the video of the apartment, and I'll put that up over there so you all can see it. But when it really comes down to is the process is way different than it is elsewhere. So you're definitely going to want to stick around till the end of the video, because there's a couple of tips of, frankly, one thing in particular that I discovered that you would never believe and you would never expect would be a thing. So if you're thinking about buying real estate in Puerto Rico, especially if it's a condo, you're going to want to stick around, but any real estate in general. So I will skip past the introductory stuff, but as always, if you're enjoying the channel, I'm super happy to have you here. Be sure to give me that thumbs up. It means a lot to me, and it helps with the algorithm, and it also means that more people can see this content. So if you're thinking about buying in real estate, here are the things that you definitely need to know before you sign a contract. Okay, so most people think because Puerto Rico is tangentially related to the United States, it's a territory, a colony, depending on who you talk to, and a pertinent territory. The Supreme Court actually said it belongs to, but is not a part of the United States. Who knows what that means? But what we do know is federal law does apply here, so most people think, oh, the law is going to be the same. There's U.S. federal law, and that's great. The thing is, real estate is typically state law, right? Now, there is a thing called the Uniform Commercial Code for commercial transactions, buying and selling and things like that. That does apply in some cases, but it doesn't typically apply to real estate, which is done by other statutory law. And also the Uniform Commercial Code, not to get too deep in the weeds, I'm a recovering lawyer, so I can get a little esoteric from time to time, but the Uniform Commercial Code does apply. It is really an extension of state law. So what happened is there was a group that got together and said, it would be better if commercial transaction law was the same from state to state. And as far as I know, every state has adopted that, and Puerto Rico has definitely adopted it. Now, there may be a holdout state. I know for a while Louisiana didn't adopt the Uniform Commercial Code, but I think they have now. Anyway, neither here nor there. The thing is, real estate law in the United States is fairly uniform. Typically, you have a Register of Deeds office at the county level. The Register of Deeds is the official record keeper of real estate transactions. They're the ones that say, hey, here's who owns the property. You can go to their office and literally look up the books and see if there's any liens on the title or whatever. That is not true here in Puerto Rico. So Puerto Rico, instead of using the English common law system, which is what most of the states are based on, uses the Spanish Civil Code system. So it comes from a completely different background. And under the Spanish Civil Code, there's a lot of technical differences that are way beyond the scope of this video. But here's number one tip that you want to realize is that there's no centralized record of deeds. So that means if you want to do a title research, you're going to actually go to the individual lawyer's office, the last lawyer that touched the deed, and you're going to go back in time. What lawyer prepared the original deed? And so on and so on and so on. So that means to research title here can require going to 1, 2, 3, 4, maybe 5, who knows, even possibly more different legal offices and reviewing physical records. So these are not digitized. They're just literally physical records in a lawyer's office somewhere. I had a chance to talk to a lawyer about this process because he had deeds going back to 1989 in his office. And I said, what happens if you lose them? He said there's huge penalties for the lawyers if they lose them. So a lot of times they'll keep backup records or something, but those backup records technically are not valid. And so it is actually a very inefficient system in my opinion, but it is what you have to deal with if you want to buy real estate in Puerto Rico. So big takeaway here is most closings are done at lawyers' offices, and you definitely need a lawyer with title understanding that understands the system, a local Puerto Rican lawyer to help you with this, because you're not going to be able to figure it out on your own. You typically don't use a title company here. That's not a thing. You use a lawyer, a closing attorney. And title insurance is technically available, but when I inquired about it, they were like, why would you want title insurance? Apparently, it's very uncommon here. So no title insurance for this guy, and probably none for you as well. So the lawyers do take some liability for this. So you're going to spend a little bit more time and energy. And as a consequence of this, if they discover something on the title, it can delay your closing by months, not like days, like months, right? So in the case of my condo here in Puerto Rico, which by the way I closed on last week, so thank you, congratulations, and all that. If they found a small title issue. I mean, well, it wasn't a big deal. It was resolvable, but resolvable means that it took. Well, the seller wanted to close in 15 days. I actually got a pretty good deal because I was willing to close in cash in 15 days. I went and borrowed the money from a friend, an unsecured loan, so I'd have the money in cash. And I've been paying interest on it since October. It's middle of February right now. We finally were able to close. And that was just a very small little minor issue, but it took months to resolve. I mean, the government offices were closed for big chunks of time during the Christmas season. So that was part of it, right? Like the system is just not what we're used to in the US. So it's a lot slower. So the big takeaway here is get a good title attorney. Make sure you know what it is that you're doing. The second thing is I'm in a condo. So the associations are run a little bit differently. So I had to make sure that the association dues were up to date. I had to make sure I understood what the association dues are. But here's another thing. I don't live in Puerto Rico. I'm only here part-time. I'm not even a resident of Puerto Rico. I'm not in one of the tax acts or anything. And I've done stuff, if you don't know about the Puerto Rican tax incentives, I did a whole video with a tax expert about that, which I'll put up there. But yeah, I mean, I don't take advantage of those. But if you're going to, you're going to be a resident, you're going to be here all the time, then this Avast won't be as relevant. But if you're investing in Puerto Rico, you're thinking about buying a property, maybe you're going to spend a couple weeks a year here and you're going to Airbnb it. Most buildings in Puerto Rico don't allow. Like the building I'm leaving has a no short-term rental rule, right in the bylaws. 6-month minimum duration for stays. So it doesn't really allow for Airbnb. Now there are some buildings that have a three-month duration minimum. Some have 1 month. If it's 1 month, I suppose you could do like a furnished finder or something like a long-term Airbnb. But you want to know the answer to that before you buy if you're thinking about Airbnb. Now the building I'm in now actually does allow short-term rental, and as a consequence, there's several short-term rentals. In fact, the unit I'm sitting in right now currently with these ridiculous decorations behind me is in fact, or was in fact until 2 weeks ago, an Airbnb. So it could be operated as an Airbnb should I choose to do that. Now I don't know that I will because I have all my stuff here, and you can't see right now, but it's like a train wreck in here. I have stuff everywhere because I went from a 2-bedroom, 2-bathroom condo with a balcony, which I'm gonna miss. I sat on the balcony this morning and had coffee, and tonight I'll sleep there one last night, and then furniture is getting moved and got to be out by the end of the month. So what can you do? I got to move. Anyway, I'm going to save a lot of money. That's the good news about the smaller, cheaper place, right? But and when you're here, like I was in Puerto Rico 103 days last year. My rent was such that works out to with utilities and stuff like over $300 a night. I could stay in a really nice hotel for that, so that wasn't a very good long-term solution. When I was here more, 150, 170 days, that per day cost went down, and it was probably worth it for me. You know, originally I intended to move here, but chose to instead stay living in Chattanooga and just come back and forth. And I'm here, you know, usually at least a week every month. So I do get here quite often, and it is really nice for me to be able to hang out in Puerto Rico. I love Puerto Rico, and that's why I have a channel about Puerto Rico. Started 2 businesses here now, and I intend to continue to operate those. In fact, the shipyard project, which we did a video about before, Mahuru catamarans, you can definitely check out. That is, we've got the land secured now. We're starting the process of moving forward with that. So that's going really well, and that might end up causing me to be a full-time resident at some point. Like it might be something that I have to do it. So anyway, so without digressing further, so first thing you need to know is title work is confusing. The second thing you need to know is you need to make sure that you're allowed to do an Airbnb if that's what you're looking for. And you know, another thing is to look at the local jurisdictions, because some of the municipalities don't allow it either. So in Carolina, it's kind of up to the individual building. And obviously, if you have a standalone house, you have a little bit more flexibility than you do, like, say, you know, here in a condo. Anyway, so those are the two big takeaways: the Spanish Civil Code, the different title work system. But you know, there's other things. It's hard to establish utilities. You know, I have only three utilities: internet, water, and power. I was able to get the power on today. I've had the condo for 9 days. That's crazy to me. I was able to do it all online, which I wasn't able to do when I turned the power on at my last condo. So there's some improvement there. But the power's on here. Wasn't particularly complicated. They even had English language options, so I didn't have to like struggle through my very limited Spanish ability, although that is getting better. You know, I think I did an interview with my Spanish teacher, Zuli, a while ago, but I've been doing 2 or 3 hours a week with her, and that's been working really well. So the Spanish is getting there, but not quite good enough for customer service, I don't think so. Water is an interesting one. I'm not even sure. My water's on right now, but I don't actually know that the bill's been transferred over to me. I went and did the process online. They didn't send me a confirmation email or anything like that. Power's Luma. It's Luma, LUMAPR.com. So if you want to get power on, LumaPR.com. And if you want to do water, at least in the city, geez, it has a crazy name. I can't think of it right now. It starts with an A. Anyway, so you know, you can just Google like San Juan Water Authority. You'll figure it out. Anyway, so water, I think it's switched over. I mean, I have a water bill at my old place still, but I'm gonna have to try to call them since it's been 5 days and I haven't heard from them. Not a single confirmation that they even received my documents. And I had to upload my deed. I had to upload proof of who I was, you know, identity, all that kind of stuff to get the water on, and then they didn't even respond. So I don't know what's up with that yet. And I tried to change over my internet, but somehow I ended up just changing my plan at my old place. I got a confirmation. It said they were going to call me, and instead of calling me, they just changed it to a new plan and said I have a new 12-month duration. So hopefully I can get that sorted out. I mean, that's going to be a phone call. So the tip there is call and talk to someone. Don't try to do it online, because the ones that I tried to do online did not get done. The ones that the power that I actually called and talked to someone, it got done. So my tip on utilities is you want to deal with it in person. You could find some Puerto Rican person to help you with this, someone who speaks Spanish. That you might pay, you know, $25 an hour or something like that to help you, but you're still going to need to be available, because they're going to need your ID. They're going to need to speak to you to confirm that this is what you want to do and all that kind of stuff. And I did hear from a friend of mine. He was living in an apartment for only 3 weeks and decided to leave. Called to cancel and somehow didn't get canceled and ended up with like a $3,000 power bill because the new people never put it into their name. So you definitely want to stay on top of utilities here in Puerto Rico, because it can get a little complicated. Today I went downstairs and I met the building administrator, had a conversation, and it turned out I had to fill out a bunch of paperwork here as well that no one told me I had to do, but he was like, oh, I'm so glad you're here. You have to fill this out and that out and all this stuff, which I guess makes sense because I need my contact info if there's any problems. And I really only went down there to figure out how to pay my HOA dues, which is another thing you need to think about here in Puerto Rico. Well, really, anytime you buy a condominium is what's the HOA dues and how much flexibility do they have to change them and how adequately capitalized are they? Because if the building's in bad shape, and this one's in okay shape, but I mean, there are some issues. One of the elevators doesn't work. The parking lot's a little janky. If you're in that situation, you want to understand what your liability is. So like I have a very small percentage, like 1.25% of the liability for the building, because it's a 60-some unit building and I'm one unit. And some of the units are bigger than my studio, so they have more liability because it's based on square footage in this particular one. But you're going to want to read those, and those documents are probably going to be in Spanish, so you may need a Puerto Rican attorney to translate them for you. Now, I actually, because I have a legal background and some Spanish reading ability, scanned through them, and I uploaded them to like an AI and said, tell me about this and what should I know? And then I asked the attorney that was doing the closing, who was working for me, I said, hey, is there anything I should, anything unusual in here? And so I'm taking a little bit of risk doing that, but I felt like it was a worthwhile risk. Let's see, what else do you need to know about in buying a real estate in Puerto Rico? Financing. See, that can be complicated. Now, I didn't go through financing for this property because I talked to some people about it and realized that it was much slower and much more expensive than financing in the US. So typically speaking, most lenders, US-based lenders, do not lend in Puerto Rico because of the different way that title works. They just don't have a process for it. So you're going to probably need to work with a local bank. The big ones are like First Bank and Banco Popular, but there are other ones. Those banks typically are a little bit slower than what we would see in the US for processing mortgages. And they're going to require 20 to 30% down, as opposed to like the smaller 3.5 to 5% down that you often see in the US. Now, typically in the US, I'm a real estate guy, you're going to put 20% down anyway on a second home. So if it's not your first primary residence, now I could have got away with it being my primary because I rent in Tennessee. So it's technically a first home. So I could have gotten a conventional mortgage. And there is a process for that here in Puerto Rico, but it's even slower. And you might be able to do it. You might be able to get 5 or 10% down, but plan on 20 or 30%, probably 30, just to be safe. And then expect the interest rates to be 0.5 point to a point higher than what you see advertised in the U.S. So those are the caveats there. And anytime you have a property that's done by a bank, it's going to be subject to a mortgage. And when it's subject to a mortgage, there's going to be appraisal requirements. There's probably going to be a requirement to have 2 independent appraisals instead of 1. That's what I've heard. I haven't actually gone through that process because, like I said, I borrowed my money sort of on the side from a friend, really from 2 different friends. And one of them has a mortgage, one doesn't, but neither of them required an appraisal. So yeah, that's how the process went. So like I said, it took 4 extra months. But I guess the next question would be, is it worth it? I mean, like, should you buy in Puerto Rico? And the answer to that is, well, depends. Obviously, if you're going to move here, especially under Act 16, you may even have a requirement to buy it. So you're going to look into that if you're required to own something. But there is a stability thing. And for me, once this place is paid off, the carrying costs will be very low. Taxes, insurance, and stuff are quite cheap. And the HOA dues are relatively cheap, although they can be really expensive. So you definitely will want to look at that. I mean, if you have a lot of amenities or something, we don't have a pool or anything like that, but I've heard of people paying $1,000 a month for an HOA. I'm paying $100 a month. That's a big difference. And that does change the numbers. So you want to make sure you understand that. But for me, yeah, it's worth it because I love Puerto Rico and I come here a lot. If you're going to be here 100, 150 days a year, 200 days a year, 300 days a year, 100, 365 days a year, then yeah, maybe you do want to buy because, your rents go up. But you only want to buy if it's the same real estate advice I would give in the US. Only buy if you're planning on keeping it for a long period of time. If you're going to live here for a year or 2 or even 3, it's definitely not worth it. If you're going to live here for 5 years, 10 years, or if you're like me and you think, hey, you know what, I might keep this place for the rest of my life, and even if I'm not coming here, I might put it up on Airbnb and have someone manage it for me, then yeah, it's definitely worth it. So yeah, so anyway, the one thing though, if you take nothing else away from this video, the one thing that you absolutely 100% need to know, and this is the thing that I wanted you to stick around to the end for, is also the first thing that I mentioned, and that is that the title system is significantly different. So be prepared to have unexpected things happen. Just be okay with that. And if you're flexible and you understand that their system works, it's just a different way that it works, and you get a good title attorney to help you, you should be just fine. So that is all I have to say about buying real estate here in Puerto Rico. I've been promising this video since October, but now here I am, and I've got the thing done. So thank you again for sticking around to the end. And like I said earlier in the video, if you do like my content, be sure to subscribe, hit that little bell so you get notified every time that I put out a video. And I appreciate each and every one of you. Until next video, see you around.